What is object service? Object service is a feature of quantum fabric that enables model driven application design and development by following a microservices architectural approach to create reusable components and link them to fit into the solution. Object service, you can also understand this feature if you have explored quantum fabric. uh, there is process to install quantum fabric, and if you explore yourself that what are the components required for the quantum fabric, then object service is one of them. And the role of this object service is there are different type of architectural approaches, micro, macro, and if the architecture is big size, uh, then that architecture tries to cover as much as component at top level. But you talk about the microservices architecture, which means it is at the ground level, and this microservice architecture is trying to cover as much small component that is the part of the architecture. And the objective of this to trying to facilitate the end users or the client the as much as service facilitation by observing their micro needs. So using object services, a developer can define and prefer the data model, and which define how the application wants to interact with the data, and it is the clear separation between the data model and how it maps to the backend system of record. So being a developer, it is a fantastic feature where everything is isolated, and based on the requirement a developer can associate this object service and micro architecture component in the they are developing program or software. And the defined data model and mapping encapsulate the backend data and APIs and abstract the complexity of the API from the client application. Object service can also be used to create data models from line of business, which is also called LOB objects, and define service driven objects from existing APIs in the enterprise. LOB objects can be accessed by using quantum fabric business adapters. If you get chance, just explore quantum fabric and you will learn a lot and you will understand that how this object service works. The business adapters enables users to visually discover and select the entities exposed by the LOB system. A developer can also create a service-driven object from a set of existing quantum fabric integration and orchestration services. You must be familiar about the orchestration. These integration services connect to existing API endpoints or to quantum fabric orchestration service. Every organization has their own flow in their orchestration service, which combine multiple APIs into a new composite or aggregate API. The object services features enables user to control the API calls and data in a better manner, and for simplistic application the use of integration services may be sufficient for user to get the objective done. When you start the build bigger and more complex application, the reusability play a vital role, and in such scenarios the use of object service will help to make job easier. The object services, as the name says, it allows user to create and operate on the object for referencing the data, and it also helps they interact with the backend data by using the object data model that you uh, studied earlier, and this feature makes it possible for you to develop application faster and more intuitive manner, as it is a part of micro architectural components. Everything is well defined, and whatever you need as a component you can associate in their data model. How the objects works: the object service makes application development easy by creating a data model to serve as a bridge between backend and the client application. In the object oriented world, an object contains a data field, operation defined on that data. For the example, if you create any application that display employee record and their contact information, you can create employee data model, and this data model stores the attributes of an employee. Then you can perform operation on the employee object, get a response in the format of defined data model. So if you want to search a particular employee by their employee ID, what you can do, you can invoke a get employee by ID method that is defined in the object service and get the response in the structure of the employee data model. So the way you would like to show this search option for the client, you can add that object service component in your program or software. Once your data model is defined, you can start to build your application around it. On the backend side of things, you can map your data model to your data source, and the strength of data model is that you can easily reuse your data model across the applications and easily switch to other data sources with a few changes in the front-end application. Now the question comes that how you can choose the object services. There is a difference between object service and traditional approach to APIs. So in object service, it can be focused on designing the data model and mapping it to the backend data. In traditional approach, people used to focus on designing and invoking REST APIs. In object service, which is advanced version, it is independent development of front end and back end. But opposite to that, in traditional, tightly coupled interaction between the front end and the back end development. In object service, it focuses on application logic and thrilling user features. In traditional, energy is spent on creating back-end interaction. So in object service, it's ease of service creation and invocation, but in traditional, more code required and more prone to errors. In object service, there is reuse of same data model across different application, but in traditional approach, it doesn't encourage pattern driven development. In object service, it's easy maintenance, code is generated automatically. That most of people like that, most of developer like that, is because time saving. In traditional approach, it's tough to maintain, varies with each developer's coding style. In object service, there's 3 times faster releases by reusing the same data model, and it also facilitates the long-term savings. In traditional, there is no reuse, and each application must invoke services from the scratch. In object service, there's a 4 times faster integration, and it's focused on configuring connectors to access the data. And traditional approach, this requires massive amount of custom code. The process of application development is a volatile endeavor and comprising many variable factors, and the 2 most important facets of the application that consist of front-end application and back-end services. It is vital that these 2 facets communicate in the simplest manner possible to pave the path in an awesome application, as it's time saving, as not so much code driven programming is required. So how this object services facilitate this communication and helps to create the interim bridge between two facets, and this is achieved by creating a data model which acts as a contract between front end and back end developers. So how the object service is very helpful for the developer while their development. uh, I hope you enjoyed the lecture. Thank you.